Y'all good? All right. Thanks, everyone, for being here. And most of you were here a little bit early, so thank you for that. Really appreciate it. First item of business is to consider the minutes from the February 14th meeting. So if you all have any, if you'll take a look at those again, and if you have any changes or edits, please let me know. And if we...
I move approval of the minutes. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We do have a public comment period. Did we have anyone sign up? Oh, somebody could just take a peek. No one signed up for that. Thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda is election of new commission chairperson and vice chair. We'll take up chairperson first and entertain any nominations.
Yes, good afternoon. I think, let's see, we're still morning. Yes, we
Barely.
are. Good morning, Cindy and everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to say how wonderful it is to serve in this capacity, and thank you for putting me on the spot up front, but I would like to sit in the back next time. But at any rate.
We can arrange that.
Thank you. But at any rate, I am just delighted to nominate my good friend, Jeannie Nelson, as chair for the Greenways Commission. I have known Jeannie and been a part of working with her on several committees here within the Greenways, the board as well as the commission. And I think that she will make an outstanding chair and lead this commission, as well as she serves. She's been a part of Greenways, a part of this from its inception. And so I think that this will be a wonderful opportunity for her to serve in this capacity. So I formally nominate Jeannie Nelson.
Thank you. I had a few years off between the start and now, just to clarify,
And likely
20
so,
or
but
30.
it's like coming back and like riding a bike. You never learn. You always know how to do it. So.
I second.
Thank you.
Doing a second.
Real quick, do we have any other nominations for that?
I close my eyes.
I move that we close the nomination on that one and that she be elected by acclamation.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Thank you. Well, thank you.
You're vice chair. Would you like to manage the election of the vice chair? We'll get you started.
Sure. Sure. With all due preparation, here we go. Yeah, but first I'd like to say thank you all. And I think there are incredibly great things that we can continue that have been started and that we can do in the future. I love this whole group of people. We are so lucky to have this. And all our non-voting members from the different departments. We're going to depend on all of you all being extremely active. So, are there nominations for vice chair? Anyone have a nomination for vice chair? Or do we
Well, I'm not sure, but if it's appropriate for me to do that, but I know that I would like to nominate Mark Dutchman as the vice chair.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other nominations? All right. Shall we call a vote? Mark, hide your eyes. Mark, do you want to maybe tell people a little bit about your involvement with Greenways and whether you'd be willing to accept such a nomination?
Yes, I've been on the commission before, but it's been probably 4 years ago, and I don't know if I served for 4 or 6 years. But I also had served with Greenways for Nashville for quite a while and was president of that organization back probably during Carl Dean's term. But I'm also quite passionate about building this urban system at this point and have been passionate about building greenways to the edges of Davidson County for years, and so I would love to help.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay. Congratulations, Mark. Okay. So I think that, again, with all my preparation, Cindy, I want you to be active in this.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I
That's
just,
okay.
I could definitely add to this next item.
Yes, so I think we've got a really great and really important agenda. Thank you for getting it out to us, Cindy. So we've got a really important piece that's being brought back up from the last meeting. I'm sure you all recall that we didn't have everything we needed in order to move this forward, and we'll get a report back on that. And then I'm really excited about Kendra Abkovitz being here from the mayor's office to talk with us about the transit project and how we might intersect and things. And then, of course, our regular, really important updates and reports.
So for item number 5, which is, I'll read it. You all have a packet that at your space that has a resolution regarding a multifamily development along the Cumberland River Greenway connector. So this connector connects from why am I blanking? Morgan Park. I almost said Watkins. Morgan Park to the Cumberland River Greenway main section that moves through Germantown. And the request is to amend the Greenway easement agreement and the routing of that Greenway to accommodate this multifamily development that will be on either side of this segment of Greenway. The development team presented at the last meeting, and as Jeannie said, there were still some things that we needed. Staff requests your approval of a resolution to recommend an amendment to this existing Cumberland River Greenway easement, subject to the following conditions in addition to those required by the project's approved preliminary SP. So this Greenway, this development does have a approved preliminary SP. It's been to council, and it addresses how the Greenway should be addressed as part of their development. And so I'm going to read through these. I'm sorry, it's a little bit long, but so we're requesting approval of that amendment. We have a representative from the development team here if you have questions. But the conditions that go along with that request are, number 1, the developer must provide a set of landscape and civil design documents with sufficient detail to show that the Greenway will be constructed to Metro standards, including ADA requirements. The designs are subject to approval by the Metro ADA office and Greenway staff. Such approval not to be unreasonably withheld. Plans must include, at a minimum, the standard Greenway trail cross-section detail and all details referenced on the site plan. B, the location of the proposed pedestrian bridge on all landscape and civil sheets. Developer must provide bridge plans, Greenway site furniture locations and specifications, including bollards at Greenway connection to First Avenue and 2nd Avenue. Detailed transitions from the new Greenway trail to the existing Greenway trail and sidewalks, Greenway wayfinding and regulatory signage. Number 2, proposed sanitary sewer manholes must be located off the Greenway trail. Existing sanitary sewer manhole must be reset flush with the finished grade of the Greenway trail. Number 3, the developer must provide location and elevations of stormwater drainage infrastructure. Number 4, approval of Greenway easement amendment does not constitute approval of final SP plans for the Greenway. Final SP plans for the Greenway will require approval from Greenway staff. Number 5, approval of Greenway construction by Greenway staff and Metro ADA staff will be required prior to the issuance of any temporary or final use and occupancy permit. Number 6, developer must provide an executed copy of the amended conservation easement agreement with required exhibits. And finally, number 7, developer must provide documentation reasonably acceptable to the Metropolitan Department of Law, showing that the Greenway Conservation Easement conveys all rights necessary for the Metropolitan government to use, improve, and maintain the Greenway for public use in perpetuity. Your packet has that, has an exhibit of the new amendment. It does add a little bit of square footage to the existing easement. It's just several feet away from where it currently exists. So I'm happy to ask questions. We can also, Doug Sloan is here representing the developer if you have questions for him.
Where exactly is it?
It's a Greenway connector from Morgan Park over to the main Cumberland River Greenway that runs through Germantown. So it's at 2nd and Van Buren. And it crosses, it ties into the Greenway that parallels the CSX Railroad in that area. Yes, yes.
Do we have other questions? Cindy, I thought one thing you might do, since we're only planning as a group, you had asked about our plan to do an orientation. Can you just give us a brief sense of under what circumstances or what the standards are for amending an easement? Mm-hmm. It's my understanding is that is not the habit to amend, but tell us what those standards are.
Right, sure. And I'll start with the approval process. The easement agreement and all of our easement agreements require the approval of this commission to amend an easement. It also requires the approval of the park board, and ultimately Metro Council makes the final decision. So this approval will go, it's really an approval of a recommendation to Metro Park Board to make a recommendation to Metro Council. It's kind of wordy. As I said, ultimately there'll be legislation written and the council will be the ones who approve it. There has to be a need to move the Greenway and the Greenway easement, this project, in order to make this site developable for the applicant. A slight adjustment to the alignment was needed. So we do have an obligation to not prohibit development of a piece of property and to work to get a Greenway easement that's as good and hopefully better than what the existing condition is. So in this case, in addition to just relocating and rebuilding, so you have a fresh, new trail, there's landscaping and lighting, and there'll be signage attached to it. So there are improvements, and that's something that we want to see. There has to be a real need. It can't prohibit the connectivity that we currently have. We wouldn't shortchange the existing connectivity of the Greenway as well.
Do the neighbors notice any differences as a result of the easement?
The main difference I think that they're going to see are the amenities that's attached to it, and that it will be straddled by residential buildings. So right now it's basically an empty gravel space on either side. So in terms of differences, I think mainly it's the building itself that is going to be the most dramatic difference, is having a building there where it's an empty lot right now.
I believe you noted when you were originally saying this that there was some additional square footage. So in terms of, equal to or better, I'm not.
Mm-hmm. There's about 10,000 additional square footage in that space of the new easement. It's very close to where it is now. I mean, a matter of a few yards.
Okay, that's helpful. And for, in addition to walkers, are cyclists going to be at the same advantage they would have been otherwise?
They are. I'll Current uses will still be permitted here, just like any other greenway.
What will be the availability during construction for this sector?
There has to be an approved detour route. Doug, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but we do require that there's a marked pedestrian cycling detour.
Okay.
It's a block, essentially, so.
Go ahead.
Doug, if you'll just introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Doug Sloan, live at 635 Fort Worth, right here in Nashville. And this area you may be familiar with, Van Buren. This was an industrial area. Historically, this was an industrial area here in Nashville. And there actually, for many of these roads, there are no sidewalks. There's nothing. Van Buren itself floods with any small rain that comes. And so this development will also not only be improving the greenway that cuts right through the middle of the development, but also the neighboring roads on Van Buren and on 2nd Avenue to put in sidewalks with a landscape buffer. And so what we're going to do is put a detour, and we've worked with NDOT to identify the area, but do a detour that is south of where the connection is today. And it's not ideal, but it is where we already have sidewalks, and we can bring folks over to 2nd Avenue and then back up to meet the Greenway. And I would say that you have identified probably the pain point of this process, and that is having that detour while we do the construction. And not to talk myself into some sort of problem here, but I do think it's a major improvement. There are the additional square footage for the Greenway. Right now, it's just sort of a straight shot for the most part, and this has a little bit more of a meandering turn to it, which I think is more pleasing. The developer will also be doing the improvements, whereas right now it does have some trees, but it's just a concrete path right now that just kind of shoots straight across. I will tell you, as former planning director, when we looked at properties that were parks or greenways in an urban environment, we saw a great advantage of having eyes on those areas in an urban environment like this. And so I think as we continue to piece together our greenways in our urban environment, having places like this where you have active uses near the greenway, where you've got eyes on the greenway, I think makes people a lot more comfortable in using those greenways, particularly in these very pioneer sort of areas that the north side of Germantown are. So we will have to have the detour while we're doing construction, and we are doing construction on either side of it. I don't know the exact time period that's going to take. I wish I could tell you exactly how many months that is. I don't know. But I do know that the whole thing will be done all at once. The improvements to Van Buren, the improvements to 2nd Avenue, and the improvements here on the Greenway.
I have one more question follow-up, sorry. So in your detour, would it be, you'll be going through Van Buren and then you're going to take the northbound on the west side of your property line and then do the railroad track, or are you just going to do the Van Buren?
No, we will do both. Mm-hmm. So we will match what the Major and Collector Street Plan calls for along Van Buren, which is, I think at this location, you know what, I don't want to guess, but I want to say it's a 4-foot planting strip, and then an 8-foot sidewalk, and then probably a 4-foot frontage zone along Van Buren. And the same is likely to be the case all the way around the corner and north on 2nd Avenue, all the way to the Water Department's property on the north side.
One thing I neglected to mention is the design, construction, and maintenance of this new segment of Greenway will all be provided by the development, and the maintenance will be in perpetuity. So it does take this section out of the burden of the Parks Department to maintain.
So to give this color, now this will connect back to the section of Greenway that will eventually connect into East Nashville with the Oracle Bridge?
Correct.
And then where does it go sort of to the north? Where would it connect? Would it connect back into the Cumberland River Greenway?
Yeah, it goes east-west, so it's coming from the west, from Morgan Park, in the easterly direction. It ties into the Greenway.
So it goes back to the farmer's market as well, eventually?
There's no direct connection to the farmer's market from
I guess through the Bicentennial
this
Mall.
Greenway.
Eventually.
Yeah, I think eventually, maybe along that rail line, that abandoned rail line, there is some opportunity for some properties and development. And to just piggyback off of what Cindy said just a minute ago, I represent a lot of developers in the downtown and surrounding areas here in Nashville. And the element of what she just said about the developer, when you build a greenway and make it part of your development, I'm encouraging all of them to do just that, to agree to take care of that in perpetuity. And it's a little self-serving. You are about to invest millions of dollars right there on the greenway. You want it maintained well. You want to make sure that it's cared for. So it helps the developer and it helps the city to remove that burden while still having the easement restrictions that it's open to the public. So I think it's a great partnership that we're working out with these easements.
One fine point, and then we'll get, how many more people want to ask questions so we can have a sense of how much time we need to allocate, okay? Just to clarify, if the current owner, this commitment to keeping up maintaining the landscaping, et cetera, that will travel with if you sell the development to someone else, whoever buys it will have the same obligation, correct?
Correct. It runs with the land.
Yep.
So it'll be recorded as an easement. And so whoever purchases the land will have that same commitment. And when purchasing the land, we'll see there it's recorded at the Register of Deeds office that they have to maintain that.
Yeah, just wanted to be sure everyone has that sense. It's not in a side agreement, that it's in the easement, that's there.
It is, and Cindy has made sure that there's language in the easement as well, that there's an enforcement mechanism for Metro to make sure that happens.
Thank you very much. Grant?
I think I heard you, and I wasn't quite sure. What's the time frame or timeline? Do you have an approximate timeline of how that's going to happen?
I don't, and that's what I said. I wish I did. I wish I could tell you they're going to start on X date, and it'll take exactly this long, and they'll be done on X date. I don't have that.
Yeah, okay.
I wish I did.
Thank you.
This is a good conversation. Are we okay? So, Cindy, will you
Thank you.
state the language that you need us to take up for this approval?
Yes, I need you all to approve this resolution to recommend the amendment, the Greenway Amendment, easement amendment.
Okay.
We'll write that down, but
No,
it follows.
I just want to be sure you get what you need in order to take it to the,
Yes.
I guess, the Parks Committee and the Parks Board Committee.
Right, so just so you know, when it goes to the Park Board, it goes through the Park Board's Acquisition Committee, so they'll consider the same thing that you all considered, and then it goes to depending on their recommendation, goes to the full board, assuming for approval. And approval really it's approving a recommendation to the City Council, to Metro Council, to approve this easement change. It's terminology there, but the Metro Council has the ultimate approval authority for this easement.
I'm going to move for approval. Do I include the word recommendation in
Yes,
my
please.
motion when I make it?
Yes.
Okay. This is Brenda Gilmore, and I'd like to move that we make a recommendation for approval of the Van Buren easement.
With, if I may, with the amendment to the easement with these conditions.
Yes, with the, if I may amend my motion, with the amendment to the easements that has been indicated to us at this at this board meeting.
Okay. Thank you. It's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. So Cindy, do you want to introduce Kendra?
Yes.
Just another, interjecting some things that we will certainly go over in our orientation, but there are 10 members of the commission itself that are community members and council members. But we have specified in the charter wonderful partner departments, and they each have a representative, including the mayor's office, to our commission. They're non-voting, but we value their being here, and they're actively keeping us up on things from their department and ways that we can work with them even more. So, Kendra, go ahead. Go ahead, Cindy.
Yes, so Kendra Abkowitz from the mayor's office is here to talk with us about the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program that the mayor is undergoing, and I think you're going to find it really interesting. She'll speak a little bit towards how this relates to our Greenway system.
I defer to this group as to whether or not they're able to see.
Yeah. So we've got a great presentation time and some time for questions. So.
All right, just promise me you won't fall asleep with the mood lighting. Well, thank you so much, Chair Nelson and Cindy, for having me today. Really excited to share with you all information about the transit referendum effort. Hopefully most of you all have now heard that we are moving forward with the transit referendum in November. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to share an update with you all about our work and progress moving forward. My position within the mayor's office is Director of Sustainability and Resilience, but as you all can imagine, this is a very robust and time-sensitive effort, and so I'm also spending some time with our transit team helping them out, recognizing the connections that that this effort does have to the concepts of sustainability and resilience. So one thing I think that we're really focusing on with this transportation referendum is that transportation is a really instrumental piece of all of our lives. And so before we even started externally talking about moving forward with a transit referendum, we took some time to start gathering transportation stories. And so we won't go through all of these, but here on this slide, you'll see various representatives of the mayor's office and some of their transportation stories. And we've continued this theme through many of our conversations with our different advisory committees, our technical advisory committee, as well as our community advisory committee. And I would encourage you to think about your own transportation story as well. It really helps you reconsider, again, how having a high quality transportation system can really be essential to our community and to everyone's lives here as residents. So kind of one way I want to set some context for this conversation is to lay forth the timeline that we're working under. And so if we go back to mayoral campaign season, it was no secret that this was an important concept and topic for now Mayor O'Connell. It was one of his campaign priorities. And so fast forward to when he became Mayor O'Connell, there was a small group of us that really immediately, as soon as he entered into office, started understanding requirements associated with pursuing a transit referendum and then working backwards to actually determine whether or not it would be feasible to move forward with a referendum, in particular by November 5th. And so you'll see here on this slide, we won't go through all of the dates, but the mechanism that we're utilizing to potentially move forward with a dedicated funding source for transit is the Improve Act, and we'll talk a little bit more about it here in a moment. But there are a variety of elements that are prescribed within the Improve Act, and so some of this schedule is dictated by needing to move through the sequence of some of those prescriptive elements. And so a large part of our original analysis to determine feasibility of moving forward with a transit referendum was dictated by those steps and essentially moving backwards. So we said, okay, if we need to get this on the ballot on November 5th, when does early voting start? When do we need to file something with Election Commission? Because council is required to approve that ballot language, but also the transportation improvement program. When do they need to actually receive and approve this language? And then there's also a significant financial component of this, and that's financial certification from the state comptroller. So it is a very, very tight timeline, but the timeline is really dictated by the urgency of the circumstance here. We have the opportunity to either continue sitting in traffic or actually put our foot on the gas. And so really important that we move forward with this, and here's the timeline we're working under. I think another thing that's really important about this effort when we think about the timeline that we're working under is that we're not starting from scratch. We have over a decade of plans, over 70 plans over the past 15 years, really, over 66,000 data points that have been thinking about how we need to grow as a city, but also how we need to move people across the city. And so again, a lot of what we're doing with this plan is taking the ideas from prior plans, bubbling up to the surface and taking kind of the best and the brightest specific projects from those plans and accelerating the rate at which we can do them. And so for those of you who have been following planning activities in Nashville, you know that we have a vision that was put forth in Nashville Next that really looks at focusing growth in centers and corridors, and then also strong multimodal transportation visions tied to physical growth. And so with that, that's then informed a variety of ensuing plans that have been prepared over the last decade, and you'll see some of those here, including Plan to Play and Walk and Bike. And so, as I mentioned before, we've got decades of planning, over 70 plans and studies, and you'll see some of the specific metrics here that speak to community plans, also transit-specific plans, transportation plans, regional transportation plans or studies, state transportation plans and studies, and even others, including plans that I work with really regularly, like our Climate Action Plan and Climate Adaptation Resilience Plan. And so it's a topic that we talk about a lot. We just have failed really, I think, to execute in a meaningful way. I think another important thing to note is that we're seeing growth on our corridors in particular happen absent any major significant changes in how we fund transportation systems. And so this is an image of Dickerson Pike in 2017. And then you'll see if you fast forward now to 2022, we're seeing significant density and growth along that corridor. But again, we haven't made really significant improvements to the transportation infrastructure. Similar story on West End Avenue. So if you've been here for several years, you'll remember when there was a lot of fast food establishments along West End. Now that's no longer, and we have got some really dense growth. In this circumstance, we do see some improvements, for example, crosswalks, sidewalks, things of that nature, but again, no significant transformational investments. And so again, those are just two examples, but I think you could choose any of our major corridors and see similar growth. And so as we see that transformation happen, we see a case, a more compelling case for investment in more frequent transit. And so you'll see it doesn't make sense to have a lot of service when there's not a lot of density in growth and development. As we see that density increase, local service makes more sense than frequent local service, eventually high capacity transit, and then high capacity transit with a separate right of way. And so I think where we are right now is where it really makes sense in most of our corridors to increase that frequent local service and high capacity transit, and even in some of our corridors, high capacity transit with separate right of way. But again, just a visual representation of why that makes sense as you see more density and growth occur. I mentioned again that we're kind of on this continuum of planning. Our planning efforts didn't just start when Mayor O'Connell came into office. And so this is just a timeline that takes us way far back. Also has some, I think, unique and interesting fun facts. For example, our last streetcar ran in 1941. We also were the first city to install bus priority lanes near the state capitol in 1956. But again, you can kind of see key transportation events in Nashville leading us up. Including things like Let's Move Nashville in 2018, rebranding of MTO to WeGo, NDOT's creation to where we are now, and even the Imagine Nashville survey effort that I think gave us some pretty impressive data about the need for investing in transit as a city. And so I think the other thing I want to note here is that it is a continuum of conversation about plans. So even with the engagement that we're planning to do and will be doing and already are doing on the referendum, engagement will continue afterwards. So just because a referendum might be passed does not mean that there won't be opportunities to engage on specific projects. In fact, we're required to do that. So there will be many, many, many opportunities for the public and for you all as leaders and for the commission as a whole to provide input on individual projects if a referendum is passed. So this isn't a one and done type opportunity. I wanted to quickly touch on the financial aspects of things because I know that's something that we are considering very seriously and that is coming up in a lot of conversations externally. And so really where we are focusing our attention right now is sales tax and at no more than a 1/2 cent increase. There are a variety of reasons why we're pursuing this. One of these is that we do think it is a significant revenue potential generator. It's also relatively predictable. So when we look at how the economy ebbs and flows, it is one that we can predict with more certainty than others. It is a sales surcharge would be something that all users would end up having to pay. One of the interesting things is because we do have a healthy tourism economy, about 60% of those surcharge revenues would actually be paid by tourists and commuters in particular. And so there also gives us a significant opportunity to provide to alleviate some of the pressure on general funds as well. And so a little bit of information there on the financial aspect of that. We are still very closely crunching the numbers as a project team to identify the revenue envelope that we will have. But just know that there's a lot of thought and conversation going into revenue sources and why that sales tax surcharge makes sense. So I wanted to quickly pivot now to a little bit more about what's in the plan. And you all may have seen concept maps that are starting to be released. And so I wanted to share that same level of detail with you all, but also provide perhaps a little bit more context as to how this is going to impact and connect with the Greenways system. And so before we actually look at some of those concept maps, I wanted to share with you all that, again, these are drafts, maps and figures based on our modeling and our project lists, but there are still refinements that we're making as we finalize the plan. We also have a variety of elements that aren't necessarily going to be represented in these graphics. So when we talk about this plan, everything that's included is oriented around 4 key areas: sidewalk, safety, signals, and service. And so the safety safety and some of the technology and community supportive elements aren't really well suited for mapping, and so you won't see those today, but they will be discussed in the final planning document. And then there's also a variety of different ways of communicating this information that we're working on that I don't have ready to share with you today, but know that we are seriously thinking about what's the best way to share this information with the public and make it meaningful, but also meaningful to different types of audiences. And so we'd welcome your suggestions on that, but additional work still is being done by our team. So what does this mean for the Greenways system? When we look at the plan, it is going to increase multimodal access to existing greenways. So I mentioned that one of kind of the pillars that we're really focusing on with this plan is sidewalks. And sidewalks do have really, really deep connections to our greenways, and having more sidewalks will make getting to greenways easier and safer. And so while, again, these numbers are approximate and are shifting, the plan we anticipate is going to include about 86 miles of sidewalks. Those sidewalks will primarily be located within a half mile of bus rapid transit corridors, or what we're actually calling our all access corridors, and then within a quarter mile of other transit service. And I'll share with you a little bit more about those routes here in a moment, but just remember, anywhere you see an all access corridor or transit service, know that within that we're targeting a half mile, anywhere between a quarter mile and a half mile of sidewalks connected to those locations. And then we're also really working hard to make sure that sidewalks also align with what are in existing walk and bike plans too. I think second important thing for this group to note is that service improvements along our corridors make riding transit a more attractive choice for Greenways users. So a lot of our users now will probably be getting in their vehicles to get to Greenways. Our hope is that with some of the improvements to service, whether that be frequency of service, extensions on routes, maybe availability of park and rides, Greenways users have more options for getting to those greenways. Another point that I'll note is that this could be a dedicated funding source for Greenways projects in the future. So I'll be very transparent and share with you that you will not see any Greenways actually indicated within the Transportation Improvement Program. However, there could be the opportunity for us to use this funding source for Greenways in the future. So just know that that is open and out there, but not something you'll see in any of these maps. And then I think, again, kind of another big takeaway, I loved that, Mark talked about how he sees the Greenways as a significant connector across the city. When we look at these transportation system improvements and then the ongoing expansion and enhancement of Greenways, we're building so much more connectivity across our city. And I think that's really, really important when we think about being a livable city of the future. So this is a map that actually we haven't shared publicly yet, but one that I wanted to share with you all. I apologize, it's probably really hard to see, but I'll share with you that we've got on this page essentially a buffer around one of our corridors, or several of our corridors, West End, 21st, and 8th Avenue, that will be getting upgrades to service in the proposed plan. So they will be getting more frequent service in the proposed plan, which basically means wait times in between buses will be significantly improved. And so what you see here is you'll see an orange, it's actually yellow on your screen, a yellow buffer around those major corridors, and then in green, either dashes or in solid lines, you actually see where we've got just want to make existing greenways and proposed greenways are located as well. And so you'll see intersections here, again, along Hillsborough Pike, as well as where we've got 8th Avenue South and then West End. And so definitely a lot of intersections that we see in that particular area with the 440 Greenway. And here's a second example. This time we've got kind of the White Bridge Road, Harding, and Charlotte area mapped. Again, similarly, you'll see a buffer here. And again, the reason why we drew that buffer is because that's where we anticipate sidewalks to extend to. But again, you can see significant overlap between where those transit system improvements will be, as well as the Greenway system. And so I know these are hard to read. I'll make sure that Cindy can share these maps moving forward with you all. And we are working to develop an interactive system where anyone and everyone, once we've finalized the plan, can go in there and actually drill down very specifically and zoom in to different locations and understand what improvements are going to be in their community. And so know that even once you do get these slides, you'll have a more sophisticated tool that will allow you to look very, very closely at these intersections. And so again, these are meant to be more illustrative than anything else, but were some areas that I know have been of interest to this group, but wanted to share that with you all. So now we'll transition into, again, maps that have already been shared with the public that speak to some of the core elements of the plan. So this first one is a depiction of where sidewalk additions will occur. So two things to point out. One is you'll see these green all access corridors looking kind of like they're radiating out of the center of the map. Those are all access corridors where we're going to see significant infrastructure improvements, and all of those will receive coverage of sidewalks. Beyond that, you'll also see blue squiggles in other areas of the map, and that is where we'll also see some sidewalk additions. And so you'll kind of see them interspersed throughout that plan. The next element is signals, and we haven't talked about this much at all, but this is an element that is going to provide significant benefit not only for the transit system, but also for individuals who drive cars every day. So I think we've really quickly recognized that transit service can reduce congestion and increase connectivity and decrease costs of getting across the city, but there are also other improvements that can do that as well, and one of those is signals. And so we're proposing approximately 600 signal upgrades across the city. And again, the goal there is to make getting across the city more reliable and more predictable. When we talk about upgrades to signals, that means updating them to smart technology and adaptive technology so that they can be responsive to traffic flow across the city. And so it could be as simple as when we're sensing significant congestion on a corridor, maybe extending a green light by 1 second or 2 seconds. And so this allows them to connect into our transportation management center, which NDOT is in the process of currently standing up so that, again, they can be remotely essentially controlled or adaptively controlled. And so, again, significant benefits even for people who will never be transit system users. I talked a little bit about service, and you'll notice some changes in terminology as we continue talking about this with the public. We also on this map have corridors noted as all access A, B, and C. We're actually now collapsing them all into all access corridors. But the thing to know about this is these are corridors and major streets where we are going to be providing incredibly fast bus service and in some cases dedicated lanes for service. Whether or not there is a dedicated lane provided for service really depends on a couple of different things. One of those is potentially ownership of the road as well as right-of-way access. And I know you guys are very familiar with the concept of right-of-way access and how much right-of-way there may be. But these are our corridors that are going to get really robust and fast bus service. West End from downtown to 31st. Let's see, Murfreesboro, Gallatin, Nolensville, West End to 31st, Dickerson. And then Dickerson, correct.
Charlotte's on there too?
Charlotte will be getting upgrades to service, but is not identified currently as one of our potential candidates for bus rapid transit. And again, that has a lot to do with right-of-way, but it will get significantly more frequent service. So this is our frequent service upgrades. And so these are all essentially existing routes that are going to get upgrades to service. So buses are moving more frequently. We also will be adding local service routes as well. And so these are areas where there's going to be additions to the local service network or improvements in terms of operation hours as well as frequency. So we'll be moving closer to a 24/7, 365, not quite at 24/7, 365, but closer to that. And so I think the other thing to recognize about local service, you'll see this great example on the north side of where we see connections, kind of crosstown connections occurring, and that is due to the Ernest Rip Patton North Nashville Transit Center that is getting ready to be opened. As we see additional transit centers open across the city, we might see many more additional service routes that are crosstown in nature. And so that's why those transit centers are so important, because then you can build connections between different areas of the city that didn't exist before. Currently, we primarily have WeGo Central, and so every bus route essentially has to, go from its origin location into downtown, which is not the most efficient way currently. And then here's again a depiction of new service routes as well. And so looking again to expand the reach of the system across the county. Express service routes is another component of this, and so that's where we're looking at, again, providing service that has fewer stops but gets you to kind of your more significant destinations quickly. And so, again, express service is also contemplated in this plan. And so that's all I have prepared for you all today. I know there are probably a lot of questions. Know that in addition to my time here today, we have a website, nashville.gov/transit, as well as our transit@nashville.gov email address that we are answering all the time. And so feel free to, after today, also send questions or track down additional information there. Happy to take questions as long as Cindy tells me I have time to.
Yeah, thank you. That was really great. Even seeing it the second time is exciting to see. So thank you so much for that.
First of all, I'm sorry.
I'd say a couple of things. We have about 25 minutes left. So let's, Cindy, you have a better sense of what time we need to for things besides this, and we can, I know there's nothing more important than this, but I suspect that this will be on our agenda probably every meeting with your permission, but I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I think we have some time built in for some good questions and still be able to.
Like 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10, 15.
10, 15 minutes. Okay.
So first of all, you said that the Improve Act does not, the sales tax is not approved by the Improve Act. And so what funding sources would be approved by the is it the Improve Act? Yeah.
So sales tax is one of the revenue sources that is approved by the Improve Act. I think it's either 5 or 6 in total. And I think I actually have a slide that does a little bit deeper. Yep, here's the deeper dive on the Improve Act. Since this does come up a lot, I came with it just in case. So it does provide 6 potential options, and you'll see that here on the bottom. Local option sales tax, hotel motel surcharge, business privilege tax, residential development fee, local car rentals tax surcharge, and motor vehicle and wheel tax surcharge. Again, as mentioned before, sales tax is relatively predictable, but also it far exceeds in terms of magnitude of revenue that's generated any of these other sources. And so that's also one of the reasons why it was selected.
And while I'm sad that you're not including Greenways in this proposal, do you recommend that we begin to think about which Greenways might connect to some of these frequent transit stops as a priority in the future?
I think that's a great idea. Cindy and I have already started that conversation. So I did share those high-level image maps today of where we're looking at intersections. Something I hope to be able to bring back to you all in a future meeting is an actual analytics that say, here are the number of trailheads or access points that are actually now within close proximity. And so I think as we get more, certainty regarding routes and what's included in the plan, which is coming really, really soon, we can have more, I think, robust dialogue and more sort of focused conversations about where there are opportunities for specific projects to provide greater connections.
Brenda Gilmore, and I was an elected official and represented both urban and rural areas. And when I would have community meetings to try to sell this plan, what I would hear from the rural constituents is that they didn't feel like that they should have to pay if they were not being directly benefited by this plan. So I just wanted to lay that out there so you can be thinking about it and how we can make it better accepted by rural constituents.
So thank you for that comment. I think that is something we have heard. A couple of elements included in the plan. I mentioned signals, and again, those signalization upgrades are happening across the county. That's intended to have an impact in every neighborhood and community, and again, that's going to make your commute, getting from point A to point B, more predictable, hopefully faster. And so that's a major benefit that every resident is going to see. Also, the sidewalks have really, really far-reaching impacts. And so walkability within individual neighborhoods and communities is really important. And I think even if I am an individual who's not going to be a transit user, that's still a very, very tangible impact. We didn't touch on this as much today, but there's also transit centers and park and rides that will be included with the plan, several of them. And so I think for folks who do live in more rural communities, park and rides and transit centers are going to provide potential opportunities to use transit where it didn't make sense to before. And so that's contemplated as well. And then I think the last thing I would say is even if you yourself are never a transit user, an additional transit user still benefits you because that's one fewer vehicle or person on the road. And hopefully that makes your commute a little bit easier as well. But I appreciate you bringing that up because it is something we're hearing. And I think Mayor O'Connell has been very intentional in crafting this plan in a way that everyone gets some benefit out of it. But would welcome your ideas as to what resonates and what might make the most sense to share.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
I have a question. So in your maps on the crosstown route or the new routes, I think it would be very beneficial to actually show which crosstowns they are if it's being planned, because we know that from a lot of discussions that we don't really know like which one connects to which. Which crosstown routes are there? So if they get color code, then that will actually be easier to identify them.
Okay.
What they are.
I'll share with you something we're thinking about is obviously there are these county level maps, and then those of you who are council members who we've had dialogues with as well. We're also talking about doing district specific maps. I think one of the challenges though is then that might only show a portion of either a service route or a portion of an impact area. And it also might fail to highlight travel patterns in terms of, okay, yes, maybe I'm looking at travel that I do just in my district, but what if the place I'm traveling to is, 3 districts away? And so we're trying to find ways to slice and dice how we show impacts, both through maps as well as infographics and numbers. And so it'll probably be a combination of county-wide maps like this, but then also some district level materials. And then, as I mentioned, we're working with our GIS team on an interactive tool that basically will allow you to go to a specific address, see what improvements are happening there, or zoom into kind of a specific travel route. And so definitely hear you that there needs to be probably a clearer way to present this information, and we're working on it. And so would welcome even more specific ideas beyond maybe even just color coding of routes.
Thank you. It's interesting to look at the plan. My only big concern that jumps out in the presentation is I am really uncomfortable with the reliance on an increase in the local sales tax option because of the disproportionate effect it has on lower income people in our city. And I would hope that we're still looking at perhaps the combination of some of these other potential funding sources to make up for that so we can lessen that impact on the people who can least afford it. I know it says that 60% of the revenue would be coming, it would be placed on tourism somehow, but that other 40%, it greatly and inordinately impacts people who are the least able to afford that and fund that system. So I hope that we're not stopping looking at funding sources at that sales tax increase. So I just think that's something that we need to consider.
So there's as I mentioned, there's community elements within this plan that I mentioned are not sort of well suited for depiction via map. One of those is a low income fare subsidy. And so that is built into the transportation improvement program and would be funded by the dedicated revenue source. And so we would have a mechanism of extending the opportunity to use the system through that low income fare subsidy. And again, that's built into that transportation improvement program and what would be funded with a dedicated revenue source. The other thing that, I think a couple other things that I want to bring up that aren't necessarily responsive to your point, but are important data points to consider. One is that, by taking away the cost of transportation, that helps free up an individual's resources to spend on other things, whether that be food or housing. And so I think there really is an economic impact that can happen if we're taking out of the mix cost of a vehicle, cost to insure it, cost to maintain it, cost of fuel, all of those things. The last thing I'll share is we are actually, in our region, we have the lowest sales tax. So for the most part, all of our surrounding counties already have 9.75% sales tax. And so we're actually now with this half cent sales tax increase would be bringing ourselves into alignment with our surrounding counties. I didn't include it in our slide deck today. If you're interested, shoot me an email. We actually have a slide that breaks down sales tax in surrounding counties and then even in those local cities that have already adopted sales tax increases. So we're actually now, again, bringing ourselves into alignment with our surrounding partners.
Any other questions or comments? I'm
Kendra,
sure
the two websites that you reference, is that the place for folks to go to give input?
That is, so there's information about providing input there. Yes, on the transit website. We're also getting ready to launch, obviously, a very robust forward-facing community engagement plan. So be on the lookout for information about that. It'll include a lot of different elements, including transit talks at different events. If you have an event in your community that you want us to come to, we're happy to do that. Just send us information. We're actually getting a hub request form up so that we can sort of figure out how to best strategize and get people all the places we need to be at the same time. And so we'll be out and about in the community talking a lot more about this once that plan is finalized. I think the other thing I'll note is for those of you who were here in 2018, the period that we're in right now, the process that we're taking was something that the community wasn't a part of before. So what the community saw was there was a plan that was developed and finalized, and then it was shared with the public. We've been engaging for several weeks now with our community advisory committee, with our technical advisory committee, with council members to get input on what needs to be in this plan. So if we were back in 2018, we wouldn't even be talking to you at this stage in the game. And so just know that there's going to be a lot more external interaction coming in the very near future once the sort of plan assumptions are finalized.
Any other comments at this point? Do you see, as you look forward, a next juncture, you think it would be critical to come back to this commission? And
I probably think probably sometime this summer, late spring, early summer would make a lot of sense. But just know we're happy to come back anytime. I try to attend these meetings when I can, and so if there are specific questions, also happy time available, assuming that's okay with Cindy, to even do sort of very brief updates. So, okay.
Right, and we certainly welcome, as I think sort of Mark was alluding to, but any thoughts that come across your mind as you're focused on this particular year, but things that we should be thinking out longer, because we certainly appreciate that budgets and all kinds of things start to be developed outside the transportation that we need to be doing that also can amplify what's going on there.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
This is great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think yes, and I'm going to be brief on this. I didn't bring slides today, but just a heads up, I spoke to the Parks Board yesterday and said I was highlighting our kind of new shining star, which is Whites Creek Greenway. We have a capital project funded, and we started design to connect the Whites Creek Greenway from Hartman Park down to Buena Vista and along West Hamilton Road. So, and it will be on both sides of West Hamilton across the property that Metro Water Services acquired through the volunteer FEMA flood buyout program. So it's just a win for everyone. This property, now that the homes are not there, it has provided some really nice open space. It's property with canopy trees. It will include access to the creek in some form. A really great additional mile to Whites Creek Greenway. Some improvements with the walking track there on site at Hartman Park. We're anticipating our first public input meeting probably in early May. We don't have it set yet, but we'll let you know. And when we were on site last week, what we already knew is that it's a heavily used greenway, and a lot of community support for that. So it's just a really good project. There are two other Whites Creek Greenway projects in the works as well, and those are through private developments. So as we spoke earlier about the Second and Van Buren project, one of those is providing that their contribution on this will just be an easement at this point, just because of location and timing, but it's an easement along Whites Creek and Ewing Creek. So helping us expand out toward the east, I think that would be. And then a second project will include design and construction and maintenance of a greenway. And we also walked that site. So we've had the opportunity to get out twice in a week on some really beautiful days. And those are both really good projects. They are not completely contiguous. They're separated just a little bit by a couple of properties, but they are definitely putting us much closer, advancing to that much larger system. So we're really happy about those.
And Cindy,
Hey, Cindy.
if I may, I'm sorry. Is that a turn?
We have a couple of people want to say something. Grant, you want
I'm
to
sorry.
start?
Mark, I didn't even see. I was focused in on Cindy, so I didn't see. I just wanted to say, and I'm just as excited too, because that's one of my favorite greenways, and it's close to my neighborhood, and I frequently use frequent that greenway. And I think that it's much needed. It's a little long overdue, and I think that we're excited. I'm just excited, and I think our neighborhood is going to be very excited about.
I hope so. I anticipate that we'll see a lot of excitement there, just because of the participation in the past on different activities. And there's just so many people using that greenway.
And as many friends as Grant has, he should get you people to that community input.
I can't wait to we have to have an official grand opening, a re-grand opening of the greenway after the construction is done.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Have
Mark.
to do that. Thank you.
At some point it'd be lovely to see, pick pick a greenway, but Whites Creek Greenway is a good one because you're starting to connect the dots to see what the whole long-term plan is and like show us the vision of what it might be when it's done.
Right. And normally I come with slides, but I knew today we had a really packed schedule, so I can show that.
I had a
those
developer
areas.
who reached out and he's got a piece on Whites Creek, and I have no idea if it ties in, but I think they'd be willing to donate an easement, and maybe the person you're talking to, but is that something you'd like to see more of?
Oh, absolutely. These are coming to us through the SP process, the rezoning process at planning, and that's where we have that opportunity to get in and request easements as they're requesting entitlements, the rights that they don't currently have with the zoning. We're able to come in and talk about greenways and get those improvements. I'm going to really rush through this because I know we have a few more folks. Park for the 440 Greenway, Park Plaza to Centennial, which is right outside our door, is we're finishing up design on that. 440 Greenway from Sevier Park to Browns Creek Park, also moving forward. That was in permitting. We're in the water, bridging the water there, so there's some permits that we have to go through. Those are also capital projects. Two other developer-driven projects that we've mentioned for a while now is the Harpeth River Greenway at the Ariza Bellevue multifamily project. That one includes not an easement, it actually includes a land donation of about 20 acres and construction of a greenway extension there. And then Richland Creek Greenway at Bellmead Plaza. This is an extension of the Richland Creek Greenway and brings with it design, construction, maintenance, and some really great improvements to the creek and removing impervious surface areas and enhancing both the creek and the greenway connectivity. I do want to mention that the department is working on a plan to play update. So plan to play is the park's master plan, which includes greenways, where this update will include kind of a focused effort on greenways, as well as an implementation plan for the department as a whole. So stay tuned for that. There'll be public engagement. We'll keep you all obviously informed about that. I'm going to stop there unless you have questions. And
Yeah, I think, I don't have particular questions, and people may have them, but I think this is a good example of something that probably, rather than our run through, if we could, you just spell them out maybe in writing at some point. But I was flipping back to the Whites Creek. I'm hoping that we will all take a lot more opportunities. We all have our own little greenway we go to all the time, but more opportunities to get out to other ones. And just even when we're out driving, to have an image of where that Whites Creek thing is going to be. So if you have some kind of even map or drawing of the things that you just talked about in the Whites Creek thing, you can go ahead and send it out to us otherwise.
sure, I could do that. And you
I think it would be great. It's a great spring day to go to the nurseries out there and buy plants. So, whatever.
And of course, we'll want you all at the community meetings. Please come and
Yeah.
Our good friends Bates, it's right,
Yep.
right in the
So, okay.
Yep.
So, thank you. Does anybody have a burning question about any one of those? I mean, you can always call Cindy and ask her afterwards. So,
You can.
So
You're
we'll
welcome.
just,
Maybe we'll, we try, in the past, we've tried to do field trips as part of our commission meetings. We only have 6 commission meetings a year, and we have more and more business coming now that requires all of you, especially on these, when we're acquiring easements and some of this policy. So even if we aren't able to take a meeting and do a field trip, we can certainly do a field trip, aside from
right. So
from
there
a
can
formal
be
meeting.
those, exactly. That's great. So can we've only got, I really want us to start on time and I want an end on time to respect everyone, but I also don't want to give short shrift to the other reports that are really important. Can you all stay till 5 minutes after so we don't do that? And also, we really want to focus on getting a good time that works for everybody especially for the new commissioners, but really for everybody for orientation. So hopefully people brought their calendars, saw the list that Cindy sent out last night of some potential dates. So please don't leave without communicating to her.
If you all want to tell me today what works for you, or if you want to shoot me an email today, that is good, and we'll figure out how to make that happen. I think probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, we'll see, should take care of what we need to
Maybe
speak
she'll
about.
send something out right after today, and you can say what time and time of day and which of those days would work, so we can get that on before we have to treat every meeting as partially orienting about something that hasn't come up before. Okay. So the next thing is Greenways for Nashville, our wonderful partner, the nonprofit that supports what we do and Greenways does all over the city. The fabulous Amy Crownover, our executive director.
Wow, so really informative meeting for myself, and I'll be very brief. I wanted to share, you asked specifically for maps that show some of these developing projects, and we are just went to the printer this week, the new full system map. Cindy has worked with us, and Whites Creek, 440 Greenway, Opry Mills Connector, and the Sevier Park to Browns Creek Park. They are all on the new map as ... So when you get the new map, and I'll bring it to you at your next meeting, you will have the tool that you're asking for these metro projects that are far enough along that the route is indicated on the map and you can go explore. So that is also obviously a great marketing tool, promotion tool for the action that is happening, the development that's happening across the system. So look forward to that collaboration, obviously, as well as super excited, and we are supporting behind the scenes this integration of the transit sidewalk system, bikeway system that will connect to the existing trailheads. That is a huge benefit for all users, whether they're commuting, their neighborhood users going for health, wellness, trying to get to a park. And there are probably about 90 trailheads, and many of them hopefully will benefit. We will learn more as Kendra and that team defines those maps, and we will do community engagement. Obviously, have Kendra come out or have somebody with the transit referendum present to the captive audience that is Greenway users. So, everybody wants to know what's in it for me. Where do I live? How's this going to affect me? Those Greenway users do want to understand, how is it going to be easier to get to their Greenway of choice, whichever it is and for whatever reason. So I'm really excited about that focus in the transit plan, and I think it really gives us something to get behind in support the plan, support the referendum, to get something moved forward in our city. So where do you have opportunities to be out with these passionate people who love the Greenways? We have the Richland Creek Run. You can grab a card on your way out. It is this Saturday. It'll be 500 Greenway fans together on the Richland Creek Greenway. The mayor will be there for opening remarks at 8 a.m. on Saturday. I think, Tyler, you're probably coming a little earlier for registration. So some folks are volunteering. Some folks are already registered. So thank you very much for supporting. And again, you can just come. It's free to come and watch. And it's a great event. And again, you'll hear from the constituents who are users for a variety of reasons. We also have painting the Greenways. Nothing like taking a little piece of the Greenways home. This is a partner project with the Chestnut Group, who is also a conservation organization, and that is going to be in the end of April, and it's a free art show and sale. You all will or should have received maybe this week the invitation to the opening, so would love to see you there. Again, it's all about promoting the goodwill in support of the system. Any questions for Greenways for Nashville? Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Jeannie, we actually have no more department reports today. Our Metro Water Services, Tom Palco, was in a conference this week. And, of course, Kendra was here. So I do have, just really quick. I can't remember if I've introduced Logan to this group. So I'm so happy to say we have filled we have one final position to fill. So I want to introduce you to Logan Elliott. He is our new Greenways project manager, and he's familiar to a lot of you. He came to us from Metro Planning Department, and we are very excited to have him here. And we've also just filled our technical specialist 1 position, and that person she'll be starting in about 2 weeks with us. So we'll bring her around next time. That's it.
Great, thank you. Good, yes.
I am very pleased to announce that the lawsuit regarding the cleanup of Mill Creek from the flood in 2020 finally settled in our favor. And so the cleanup will continue. Hopefully we'll have a date for the start of that at our next meeting. They were trying to remember how they got permission to use the creek, and so we're working with Metro Legal. But hopefully the entire creek will be cleaned up all the way down Mill Creek to the Cumberland on the insurance company's dime. So good news.
Great news, fantastic. So just a couple of, if you can just give me a couple of seconds. I will speak for your vice chair you elected to, really want these meetings to be what you all need and want in order to make our Greenways now and in the future the best thing since Freddie got elected or something. I don't know. Apple pie. And I want these to be what you need and want to know, and I want to find every way that we can to be engaged, to be not getting outside our lanes and trying to rule the world, but really to make this a satisfying and active and engaging hour and a half of your every other month. But so please think of suggestions. Don't feel like anything is overstating or overreacting. To say what you need. And, Cindy is open to that. We've got to make sure that Cindy and the whole staff can be doing their jobs instead of every question that we've got. But I think if we organize this well enough, we can prevent that from happening. But we've got an important job to help bring to life the number one park and outdoor asset that this city's got. And it's an exciting time, and I love this group of people who are together, and we're missing, I guess, two positions that are still open that we hope the mayor's office is hard at work figuring out 2 other great people. But it's going to be great. And I hope that the other thing I want to say is this orientation meeting, I really want you to think about what is it you really want to be sure that you know more about, sort of helping set the agenda. I'm sure that Cindy probably has a great idea. She could, do it right now and dish it out to us. But if we can think about what is it that I really want to know about and how would I like to know about it, then this can be an even more productive session, and we can be that much more productive as we move through our regular meetings. So thank you for letting me do this, and I suspect Mark, you couldn't have elected a better partner to do this, but just we're all it's all of us together making a big difference. So that's what I wanted to say. Olivia?
I just wanted to throw this last little piece in there for disclosure that April 22nd, I will be having voice feminization surgery. And so I will be on strict voice control. I will not allow to be able to speak for the second half of April and most of May. So if you need to get in touch with me, please text. It's what a wonderful way to get a politician to shut up, right? But I wanted to disclose that with the orientation coming up.
Great.
I don't know how I will work that. How to
Olivia,
participate.
we'll work that out with you if we, happy to do one-on-one.
Right. Or maybe we can have you on Zoom listening or whatever, or however. We'll work on it. Okay. Oh, got it. Great, thank you. And Amy, were you trying to say something?
I neglected to introduce Greenways for Nashville's newest staff member. Karen Gregg is here with us, and she joined us beginning of last month, and she is Greenways for Nashville Community Relation and Development Manager. Development does not mean building greenways. It means fundraising. So Karen will certainly be on the scene working with me on our events and our fundraising and our for the funds that we use, again, to do the projects and to do the improvements on the greenways. So please, if you have a second and hadn't met her yet, please stop by and introduce yourself. Be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And I always want to end with thank you so much to the Greenways Division led by terrific Cindy Harrison. Another great meeting. Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks so much. Thanks to all these folks who are working with us now, and
Great.
Great team.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov